In light of an extended break and the general busyness of life, I thought it would be a good idea to effectively give an overview of the channel, entwined with the next topical video. Primarily, this is a philosophy-based channel that is acutely aware of the well-established notion of Western cultural decline. If you have already watched content on this channel, you will know that part of its purpose is ideally to rekindle interest and appreciation for the ideas and beliefs that made Western culture great, or at least made it impactful and meaningful in the pages of history. Masculinity, masculine pursuits, and archetypes have been or will be further explored on the channel. Bodybuilding in particular is one such pursuit. Aesthetics and virility were always valued in the West and should continue to be valued. Bodybuilding is and has always been a hypermasculine activity that many men participate in, enjoy, and appreciate. There is nothing homoerotic about it. That's just the degeneracy of a mind shaped by the modern world, which has led to a subsequent misunderstanding of virility and provides further evidence of Western cultural decline. The people who tell you a man appreciating bodybuilding is homoerotic are the same sort of puerile individuals who can never be anything but ironic, and who joke around and say the relationships between Alexander and Hephaestion or Achilles and Patroclus were nothing more than sexual. This is seemingly because they themselves have sex on their mind constantly. So any exclusive male bonding exercise or passionate, respectful, honest, and deep friendship is immediately viewed as something perverted. Classical civilization always appreciated male camaraderie and embraced the pursuit and attainment of a high level of fitness as something of a virtue. Ancient Greek philosopher Socrates famously asserted, "It is a disgrace to grow old through sheer carelessness, before seeing what manner of man you may become by developing your bodily strength and beauty to their highest limit." In truth, classical Greek art and golden era bodybuilding was and is about appreciating the possibilities of strength, proportion, symmetry, and aura present within the human form, as well as the additional valuable traits of discipline and work ethic. If we are to assess the word virtue or excellence from an etymological perspective, specifically through a classical lens, then we should look no further than the concept of arete. The following extract is taken from the 1943 book, Education for a World Adrift, written by the British classical scholar Sir Richard Livingstone. The passage pertains to the ancient Greek concept of arete, which alludes to excellence of any kind or alludes to moral virtue. I'll now proceed with the passage. There is no equivalent for the word arete in English. It is virtue, not in the modern but in the old sense of the word. Excellence, with no moral sense necessarily attaching to it. Everything the Greeks said has a use, a function, a virtue of which it is capable. Take things as different as a knife, an eye, a doctor. Each of them has a use and is capable of a virtue. A knife's use is to cut, an eye's is to see, a doctor's is to keep or make us well. And their virtue is achieved when they fulfill their use and function. If they do this, we call them good. If they fail, they are bad, as knives, eyes, doctors. Hence, the task and problem of each of them is to fulfill its functions and so achieve its virtue. But what is true of knives and eyes is true, the Greeks thought, of men also. They too must have a function, a use, a virtue of which they are capable, and which it is their business to achieve. And insofar as they achieve it, we shall call them good. It is easier to see the functions and virtue of an eye or a knife than of a man, and in fact, he has many functions, and therefore many virtues to strive after. A human being is a member of a family, as a son or daughter, husband or wife, father or mother. He is a citizen, a member of a state. He has a profession or occupation. In each of these roles, he has a different function, and in each function is capable of a virtue, an excellence, which consists in doing the particular job well, in being a good son or daughter, a good citizen, good in his occupation, whether it is that of Prime Minister or of shop assistant. He, no less than the knife or the eye, is judged by the way in which, in each particular capacity, he does the job in question well. But that is not enough. Man is more than a citizen, a parent or child, a person with an occupation. He is also a human being, and in that capacity, too, is capable of a virtue. As a human being, he has a body, an intellect, and a character, and his business is to make the most of each of these and see that all three are developed to the excellence of which they are capable, used rightly and used to the full. He must aim at arete, at virtue in all. This was the clue which the Greeks followed through the labyrinth of life. Its business, they thought, is to seek the highest and the most of whatever a man is or does. They admired every kind of virtue, of excellence, sought after them and tried to create a society in which they could be achieved. And this ideal, this purpose, partly explains why in so many fields of life they achieved an excellence which, long after they perished, remains a model and an inspiration. Japanese author Yukio Mishima, whilst a strong proponent of traditional Japanese culture, namely the way of the samurai, to quote, civilize the mind but make savage the body, it is also evident that Mishima was strongly influenced by Friedrich Nietzsche, and in turn influenced by the ancient Greek aesthetic of a well-built and tanned body, best exemplified by the book Sun and Steel. This made Mishima somewhat irregular in Japanese culture, as the typical ideal for them was to avoid a tan because of the negative stigma attached to it pertaining to the struggle of the lower class and their hard toil. So if one were to re-establish a strong concept of masculinity, one ought to look to the classical civilization, its virtues and practices. Now, in a change of tack, if one cannot look to the Greeks directly, there has been a very current and strongly evident resurgence of a call for masculinity and masculine virtues within a niche community on the YouTube platform. The community centers around the prominent amateur bodybuilder, cultural phenomenon, and original social media influencer Aziz Shavershian, better known for his online persona and alter ego of Ziz. Since Aziz actually died in 2011, a series of videos posted by various channels in 2021 was seemingly done so as a 10-year tribute to the impact that the man Aziz and the spirit of Ziz had on his generation and the generations succeeding him. But such is the popularity of the man and his persona even to this day that Ziz has had a resurgence and has become somewhat of a positive cultural symbol, an archetype, encouraging one to simply embrace the richness of life, embrace the pursuit of destiny, and embrace strength and aesthetics in all its forms, whilst rejecting the sadness of death and the morbidity of weakness. Let us be clear, every expert was once a beginner, so it's okay to be weak, but it's not okay to stay weak, either on a personal or cultural level, and that is the doctrine of the community. Just like the traditional Greek and Faustian civilizations themselves, both men and women of today, should they wish to be considered of high value, ought to pursue excellence and high standards wherever possible. And if they cannot reach the ideal, at least have respect for the ideal itself, as worthy of being reached by those who can reach it. If you wish to learn more on the possible philosophical significance of Ziz, you can watch my other video dedicated to him. Now for a word on relationships. I do not wish to distribute black pills or for any of this to come across as a cope, but if you are feeling dejected about the lack of a romantic partner, may I ask, why? Now let me explain this position. One ought to value the time that they are single and use it to attain a higher level of self-knowledge. Use it to pursue self-actualization. Philosophically, the self-actualization concept is well established in multiple ways. Yet from a strictly psychological perspective, the specific term was introduced by physician and theorist Kurt Goldstein in 1934 as the motive to realize all of one's potentialities. It was also referred to by American psychologist Carl Rogers in 1951 as the actualizing tendency. In this respect, self-actualization is very similar to Carl Jung's 1923 concept of self-realization. As per Goldstein, self-actualization is the master motive, the only real motive a person has, all others being merely manifestations of it. However, the concept was brought to greater prominence and popularity in 1943 by one man, Abraham Maslow. Maslow developed a theory which he described as a hierarchy of needs, upon which self-actualization is the final level of psychological development that can be achieved when all other basic needs are fulfilled, and the actualization of the full personal potential takes place in the form of transcendence. According to Goldstein, self-actualization can be defined as a driving life force that will ultimately lead to maximizing one's abilities and determine the path of one's life. Maslow explicitly defined self-actualization to be the desire for self-fulfillment, namely the tendency for the individual to become actualized in what he is potentially. Essentially, a desire to become more and more than what one is, to become everything that one is capable of becoming. Self-actualization involves the need for personal growth, which is present throughout someone's life. For Maslow, a person is always becoming and never static being or having become. However, philosophically, the fundamental discussion of ontology, that is, the discussion of being and becoming, and how this relates to one's reality, actually stems from a disagreement between two pre-Socratic philosophers, Heraclitus, who first proposed becoming, and Parmenides, who first proposed being. In true self-actualization, a person comes to find a meaning in life that is important to them. Maslow explains intrinsic growth of what is already in the organism, or more accurately, of what is the organism itself. Self-actualization is growth motivated rather than deficiency motivated. It's important to understand that self-actualization cannot normally be reached quickly and is a matter of personal growth. When one first delves into self-actualization, a popular and commonly recalled exponent of such practices was world-renowned martial artist, actor, film director, and pop culture icon Bruce Lee. Lee is widely considered highly motivating and inspirational, not just for his physical attributes, feats, or abilities, but for his outlook and approach to life and the world. His legacy is enormous, and even in death, anything written or said about him carries depth, significance, and an unmistakable aura. He had excellent wisdom and passion for self-actualization and self-improvement. Bruce's approach to self-actualization was very much a journey of expressing oneself freely and truthfully. In order to achieve this, you must be honest with yourself and trust yourself. Everyone has the potential for greater wisdom if they seek it out. You do have the potential to control the narrative that is your life, if you so choose. Express yourself without fear. Be happy, but never satisfied. Now, if you are feeling nihilistic about your relationship prospects, consider the possibility that you are too obsessed with pleasure seeking, namely too obsessed with sex. Yes, sex is a primordial act, and attraction is largely instinctive, but you shouldn't let mere desire for pleasure curb your drive for the pursuit of a higher purpose and the discovery of your passion that sustains you in life. Your purpose must come first. All other relationships are secondary to your self-proclaimed life task. I would hazard a guess that those who feel hopeless about their prospects have not done and will not do all that is necessary to improve themselves. Respect is earned, not given. A good relationship is earned, not given. The high-value women you seek are themselves seeking out high-value men, so you best raise your value if you want any chance at attracting them. Although you should remain alone and stay focused until you either achieve a greater level of success or can make it obvious to a woman that you are on your path, and she nor anyone else will distract you from it. But if she still wishes to join you on your journey, then she is welcome to. Now, if you still feel like you've been dealt a bad hand in life and have done all you can do to improve your situation, although I do doubt it, I do have one suggestion for you, and that is to embrace the concept of amor fati, or loving one's fate, and wholly accepting your suffering in life as not good nor bad, but necessary. The modern culture of social media and pornography places extreme pressure upon boys to pursue girls and pursue sex. It is ultimately excessive and largely destructive. Boys need to know that their prospects will improve with age, granted that they stay committed to their passions and make sensible career choices. So they shouldn't focus too much of their time and energy on the seeking of pleasures. Sex is not the be-all and end-all of a person's value or their contribution to life. Some of history's greatest men never had children and were romantically unsuccessful. Polymath Isaac Newton had no real romantic relationships and is thought to have died a virgin. But the level of the man's genius and his contribution to life is almost unparalleled, so his romantic life is frankly inconsequential. There is always purpose. You just have to find it. Life is full of suffering, so become strong, become stoic, chase your passions, and learn to love your suffering as you are meant to.